I've played tons of NES games from a vast expanse of subject matter, be it original ideas from an imaginative mind of a developer to copyrighted works where developers were hired to take an idea and turn it into an experience that you and I would love or hate. More often than not, we hated it. Why? Because historically games made from movies, television shows, or in the case of today's episode, cartoons, haven't had the best reputation. But the good thing is, some companies did figure it out, and on the NES, there are games based on cartoons that aren't that bad. And that's what we're going to talk about today, my top 10 best NES games based on cartoons, an idea that was given to us by Jonathan Let 4049 4 months ago. Thanks for the idea. Let's begin. When it comes to cartoon-based video games, more often than not, the company that you knew would do it well was Capcom. That's just the bitter truth. They were badass at taking source material and not turning it into some underwhelming glob of shit, right? They were playable, fun, and they didn't take some insane literary license like we would see in games published by Acclaim, LJN, or Ocean. Chip 'n Dale 2 in particular had big shoes to fill, as the first game on the NES is oftentimes considered one of the best games on the console, and for good reason, it rocks. But Chip 'n Dale 2 is a little different in a few ways. It's linear, meaning we don't choose where to go, the stages are all lined up with the exception of one group of levels, specifically the amusement park, but other than that, it's all linear. It's also tremendously more expensive, as this was one of the final games for the NES in the US region. Plot-wise, the Rescue Rangers have caught wind of a news report that a bomb is going to blow up at a local restaurant. After defusing it, they unravel an entire plot by Fat Cat to try to steal an ancient relic. It's based on the 1980s Disney show Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, and it's a pretty damn good game. DuckTales on the NES has one of the most memorable level themes that rival Mario, Zelda, and pretty much any other game. Moon. I still hum it when I put Davina to sleep. That's how powerful that tiny little melody is. But this game, you might disagree with me, but DuckTales 2, it's playable, it's one of the better cartoon games, but I don't think it was nearly as impactful or fun as the first DuckTales game. The big difference in this one is that we can go back to levels we've completed if we want to grind for more money or items, but the whole gimmick is that we're trying to find pieces of a treasure map drawn by Fergus McDuck, and the pieces of the map are scattered all around the world: Niagara Falls, Mu, Scotland, Egypt, and of course, a pirate ship. Unfortunately, the game was plagued with the same issues that Chip 'n Dale 2 had. It wasn't as impactful, it had a limited release due to the lifespan of the NES, and to own it is an accomplishment. It's not cheap. But DuckTales as a cartoon, it ran from 1987 all the way to 1990 with over 100 episodes of high-quality animation with lovable characters. If you don't like DuckTales 2, then feel free to check out the show at least. It is awesome, and I believe that they recently revived it, or at least tried to. I haven't seen it yet. Felix the Cat is an old sumbitch. Old! We're going all the way back to 1919 with an anthropomorphic cat named Felix, created by Pat Sullivan and Otto Messmer. Two dudes I really don't care to talk about. Otto supposedly helped create Felix, but only after Pat Sullivan died, and Pat Sullivan was a douchebag who couldn't keep his dick in his pants for women below 18. So yeah, let's just move on to the Catman. I've actually never seen anything about Felix. I know that he was prevalent in the silent film era, and there were 3 specific eras that he existed, namely the 60s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. The game itself, though, is massively fun for what it is. It's a simple platformer that you can beat in one sitting if you really wanted to. We control Felix, he's going to rescue his girlfriend Kitty from the evil mad professor, and it's stupid simple. And what's so insane to me is that for as simple as it is, it never loses its charm. It's that good, and for many other games, I can't share that notion, right? Many games lose their edge after you understand the mechanics, and I think I enjoy this one so much because it never tries to trick you. What you see is what you get. Created by E.C. Cigar in 1929, Popeye has been used and abused for so many things. He was a film star, he was part of propaganda during World War II, he used to promote candy cigarettes, he was in comics and TV, even Robin Williams played him in a very strange movie. Most people will say he's just a sailor man with a nicotine addiction who happens to have a violent, psychotic rage for eating leafy greens, but no! No, I see a dedicated husband and father who carries with him a cosmic pipe gifted to him by the elder gods with transcendent abilities, who taps into his latent mystical powers when consuming plants of the Spinacia oleracea species. Spinach, if you will. Popeye was awesome, but the game, it's actually one of Nintendo's better arcade games, and it's a port of it. It's a simple little one. We play as Popeye dodging Bluto and later levels vultures or the sea hag, grabbing things that Olive Oyl drops, be it hearts, music notes, or letters. It's a very unique game and it's addicting for what it is. Donkey Kong was always better to me though. Out of everything that you'll see on this list today, Bucky O'Hare was the one thing I had never heard of. In fact, playing this game a while back for an episode was the first time I had ever heard of the character. Apparently, Bucky O'Hare was created by Larry Hama and Michael Golden. Larry Hama created a lot of G.I. Joe, and Michael Golden created Rogue, right? Of X-Men fame. So we have two powerhouse folks creating a story about a parallel universe where the United Animal Federation is going up against the Toad Empire in a full-out galactic showdown. And in the 90s, there was a TV show that followed it, Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars. As with most of these games, Bucky is a platformer, but this time it comes from Konami instead of Capcom, but they still did a badass job when it came to working with source material. We go through 4 planets rescuing our teammates, who we can play as once we rescue them, at least until the end of the game. Bucky O'Hare is a really neat time, and I do suggest that you check it out because I do consider it a solid game. Before we continue, I do want to point out that we are currently working towards a major milestone of 8,000 subscribers, and if we accomplish that, I'll make a special video of the community's choosing. Currently, roughly 67% of the folks watching my videos aren't subscribed, so feel free to join the community. It's a great time, and I'd love to have you here. Let's get back to the action. This is one of Aria's favorite games to play, at least it was for a while when she was in her Disney Princess era. Once she discovered Mortal Kombat and Zelda, the floodgates were open for her to explore her own little gaming journey, which I have the luxury of seeing unfold in front of my eyes every day as a parent. And that's a magical thing to experience. I only own this game because of her. I made a promise to her, she cashed in on that promise, and because of that, I will forever have this game and I have her to thank. The Little Mermaid was a very popular movie, but there was also a very short-running series in 1992 to 1994. It kind of spun off from the main film. I've never seen it. I was more of a Winnie the Pooh kind of kid. The game itself, though, it's very simple. It's an action game from Capcom. We swim around shooting bubbles at the enemies, and once they're trapped in the bubbles, we can use the same bubbles to throw them at enemies or unlock hidden items that tend to be crammed inside the nooks and crannies of the walls. It has 6 stages, and to me, if you have a child and you want to give them a solid NES game to check out, this is a great starting point. I love Looney Tunes. It was a huge part of my childhood, and as such, so was Tiny Toon Adventures. Tiny Toons was interesting to me because in many ways it tried to introduce a second generation of Looney Tunes characters, and every main character in the Looney Tunes franchise had some sort of equivalent in Tiny Toons, right? Instead of Bugs, we had Buster. Instead of Tweety, we had Sweetie. Taz was Dizzy. Daffy was Plucky. It was interesting. And these are unique characters, right? They coexist in the same universe. It wasn't like they were trying to replace them or anything, because to me, that would have been impossible. But it's important to know the original Looney Tunes came about in the 30s. So introducing a new era is something that, to me at least, was smart. In Tiny Toons Adventures, we play as Buster going to rescue Babs from Montana Max, and it's a simple, fun platformer. There are 6 worlds and 14 levels of sheer fun. This is a must-have if you have kids. The cool thing is, this franchise has a few different games, and many of them are fun. Some are novel, like Cartoon Workshop, which lets you make your own cartoons. and some that are stupid. I'll let you figure out which ones those are. We talked about the second game, but this is the first game, and it's oftentimes considered one of the greatest platformers on the NES, and it was a massively successful game, selling around 1.2 million copies around the world. It was the fourth highest selling Capcom game on the NES, and to me, it's a great game. It's a great game that's aged well, and in it we play as Chip and Dale, both if you have 2 players, and our job is to go out and find a missing kitten for a girl named Mandy. But it's never that simple, is it? We end up in a lab, we defeat a robot, Fat Cat tries to recruit one of our team members. It's a very direct and strange plot. But it's so absurd because that's what our attention span loved when we were growing up. And yes, I say we, because the attention span of kids, it has never changed. The same ADHD buffoonery that occurred for you in the 80s with Masters of the Universe was the same I had with the Power Rangers in the 90s. It's just how our kids' minds work. Speaking of kids, this is a game your kids will love, and if you want a solid game you can play with your kids, check out this one. Another platformer! Well, you know what they say. Let's get dangerous. Darkwing Duck is one of those spin-offs that cement the idea that you can make a lot of money with ducks. That's Disney 101 apparently. Make some movies, voice some animals. On this list alone, you've already seen 4 examples of that, but Darkwing Duck, I like it a lot. It reminds me a lot of Mega Man in the level design aesthetic, but the rest of the game is relatively novel to me. Darkwing Duck is not a helpless protagonist. He has a gas gun, and we can mix it up by putting different gases that we obtain through the stages, be it thunder gas, heavy gas, or arrow gas. And while it is limited, the game affords us the opportunity to replenish it. And if we need to defend ourselves, we can. Darkwing Duck uses a cape, and if we're lucky, he'll deflect the things by whipping out his cape. This is a great time waster, and to me it's more fun and challenging than Chip and Dale, but it's very subjective. You might like the others better. I think it's a badass game, but that's just my opinion. What do you think? Feel free to tell me down below. To me, DuckTales is the golden standard of cartoon-based games on the NES, and it probably helps that the folks who brought Mega Man into existence damn near worked exclusively on it. Takuro Fujiwara, the producer of most early Capcom games, returned to produce this one. The art team was led by the daddy of Mega Man, Keiji Inafune. It was programmed by Nobuyuki Matsushima, who worked on the first 2 Mega Man games, and the music was composed by Hiroshige Tonomura, who worked on Destiny of an Emperor before cranking out the earworm that is Moon. It's a simple game. We play as Scrooge McDuck going around the world and even in outer space to find 5 treasures to become more rich than he was yesterday, which is really fucking rich. Scrooge moves fluidly, but the real meat and bones of the controls revolve around his cane. He can pogo stick off of it for higher jumps to crush enemies, or to swing it like a golf club to destroy objects. It has multiple endings, and these endings revolve around how much money you have at the end of the game. To me, it's the best cartoon-based game on the NES, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anything better. And that's it for today. What did you think of this list? What are your favorite cartoon games on the NES? The comment section below is a battlefield in the making for some wonderful memories that you all have stored from your own individual childhoods, and I'd love to hear about it. Our community is chock to the brim with fantastic video game enthusiasts that love remembering a time when life was just a little bit easier to live. And if you made it to the end of this video, you're already home in our community. We would love to have you. The single most important thing you can do for me though, is to hit the thumbs up button, as it directly affects the visibility of the projects and the videos that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortefyre out.